Good morning. Oh my goodness, it has been forever since we have had morning time with Meemaw Jane. We kind of quit for a little while, took a little break, but we did not finish going through the Bible, learning about the courageous men and women of the Bible. So we're going to start right back up where we left off. Now, I think it would be a good idea for you to, hang on just 1 minute. Okay, now, if you would like to go back to the beginning and go through all of the people that we talked about already, which included Noah and Abraham and see, Joseph and Moses and Marion and Caleb and Joshua and Samson and Ruth. I think you should go back and look at them again because it's been a long time since you've heard them. But if you're ready to start back up where we were, then I would love for you to go to the video that says Courage Scriptures to Memorize, and let's work on memorizing those again and be sure that we remember them. They were Joshua 1:9, Psalms 56:3, and 2 Timothy 1:7. These are awesome scriptures. Then you might want to review, we did 2 videos on the woman called Ruth. We did Ruth 1 and Ruth 2. And I'm not going to review those. Yes, I am. Just a little bit. But you go back and start with Ruth 1 and then watch Ruth 2 before you watch this one all the way through, okay? But in Ruth 1, Ruth was the daughter-in-law of Naomi. They were living in a foreign country. She was a Moabitess, and her husband passed away, and then her mother-in-law's husband passed away as well. And so Naomi was going back to her home country of Israel, and Ruth was very courageous in that she said that she would go with Naomi. She wanted to be faithful to her and to help take care of her because now Naomi did not have a husband. So she was very courageous to leave her own people, her own culture, and she said that Naomi's God would be her God. So Ruth becomes a believer in God. And then in Ruth 2, she's very brave in that she's very courageous. Ruth has to go out into the fields, other people's fields, and pick up the grain or the wheat that dropped to the side that was left behind to kind of gather just enough for her and Naomi to live on. They had no way to take care of themselves. And this is when she ran into Boaz in his field, and Boaz became very interested in taking care of her, and he told all the workers to leave her alone, in fact to drop a little bit more grain behind so that she would have enough. So that brings us up to Ruth 3. We've been using the translation of the Bible that I know you guys have, which is the New Living Translation, but you can use any translation of the Bible that you understand the best, okay? And Ruth is in the Old Testament, and remember, if you have the books of the Bible memorized, it makes it so much easier to find things. But if you do not, there is a great table of contents in the front of your Bible, and you can find the page number to go to. So we're looking at Ruth 3 today. And Naomi said to Ruth, "My daughter, it's time that I found a permanent home for you so that you'll be provided for." So Naomi is worrying about Ruth. Ruth is still a young woman. Boaz is a close relative of ours, and he's been very kind by letting you gather grain with his young women. Tonight he will be winnowing barley at the threshing floor. Now do as I tell you. Now what happens, this is kind of strange, but Boaz is one of the relatives in the family that could be a family redeemer that would take care of a widow, per se. So Naomi wants it to be Ruth. So she sends Ruth to the threshing floor at night after he lays down to uncover his feet and to lay down. And of course, in the morning, Boaz wakes up and actually, I think he woke up in the middle of the night. In fact, like midnight or something. And of course, it scared him to pieces that someone was lying down by his feet. But he recognized how brave she was to come to him, because she was asking for him to protect them and to help them. So she was extremely brave and extremely loyal to Naomi to do this, because she could have stayed in her land and found another husband there, but she did not. And also, she wasn't looking just to marry anybody. So Boaz was very impressed by her bravery, so that he said he would, he was willing to redeem her, and he was willing to marry her. But there was another relative who was closer than Boaz was. So Boaz knew the right thing to do, the respectful thing to do. He would have to ask this man first if he wanted to redeem her. So he gets up the next morning, and this is found in Ruth 4, verse 1. Boaz went to the town gate. This is where all of the business transactions took place, evidently, and took a seat there. Just then, the family redeemer he had mentioned came by, so Boaz called out to him, "Come over here and sit down, friend. I want to talk to you." So they sat down together, and then Boaz called 10 leaders from the town and asked them to sit as witnesses. And Boaz said to the family redeemer, "You know Naomi, who came back from Moab. She is selling the land that belonged to our relative Elimelech." That was Naomi's husband. "I thought I should speak to you about it so that you can redeem it if you wish. If you want the land, then buy it here in the presence of these witnesses. But if you don't want it, let me know right away, because I am next in line to redeem it after you." And the man replied, "Sure, all right, I'll redeem it." And then Boaz says, "Of course, if you purchase the land from Naomi, she also requires that you marry Ruth, the Moabite widow, so that she can have children and carry on her husband's name and keep the land in the family." Well, this, the other man did not want to do. So in that day, this is a very strange custom. In that day in Israel, when anyone was transferring a right of purchase to another party, they would remove their sandal and give it to the person. And this publicly validated the transaction. So the other man took off his sandal and gave it to Boaz. Now, what do you think the significance of giving a sandal would be? What do we do with our sandals? Or what do we do with our feet? We walk. We sure do. So I think it had something to do with he gave up the right to walk on that land. And he gave the right to Boaz. So Boaz had all the witnesses, and he said that he was going to acquire the land and that Ruth would be his wife. And so that is what he did. Boaz took Ruth home, and they had a son. Let's see. If you look down to verse 13, and verse 16, you find out what his son's name was. They named him Obed. Now, this is a really cool thing, because Obed became the father of Jesse, the grandfather of David. Or Jesse was the father of David, but Obed was the grandfather of David. And King David, as we know, was an amazing king, and Jesus Christ came through the line of David. So Ruth, not even being a Jew, became the grandmother, basically, the great grandmother, excuse me, because Obed was the grandfather of David. So that would make Ruth the great grandmother of David, King David. All because Ruth was so brave and courageous to go to a foreign country and to honor her mother in law and try to take care of her and to honor the traditions of Israel. And God looked after her and took care of her and rewarded her courageousness. Amazing. So I love you, my grandkids and nieces and anyone else who is watching. And I just want to encourage you to be brave and courageous today, because you don't know what decision you make today is going to affect your tomorrow and actually your destiny of your grandchildren and your great grandchildren. I love you. Have an awesome day. Bye.